Hey everybody, and welcome to Geeksvana Live. Thank you very much for joining us this Wednesday evening. I hope you've all, or certainly those of us in the UK, have been getting out and flying. We've had a slightly better weather in large parts of the UK recently for getting those drones out and getting out there. Certainly feels that way in terms of the weather has been very wet and rainy recently, and we've had to really jump out whenever it's happened. We've had a couple of really nice sunny days here, so I hope wherever you are in the UK and the world, because I'm noticing we've got a lot of our worldwide audience in as well, I hope you've all been enjoying the sunny weather and getting out and flying your drones, which of course is the most important part of it. Thank you very much, Andy Cortez, first up, putting his member highlight chat in the live chat there, member for 32 months. Hit join to become a channel member. It's good for your health. Sorry, that sounds like a threat. It does, doesn't it? And we've got some other ones coming up there. Itchy Sack FPV, awesome name, member for 17 months. Johnny DRC, member for 17 months as well. And Legwork for 29 months. So thank you guys. We've got some awesome channel members here on Geeksvana who have been supporting the channel for a long time, for many months, as you can see there. So tonight we're going to be talking about something which has come up a couple of times on the channel before. We actually ran a specific show on this when it was breaking news, as it were. And regulars will remember this story well, where we actually showed the footage in full of a drone pilot who appeared to be flying completely legally, threatened by a local resident for flying his drone over their house. And before we move on, very quickly, Airless Mean 17 months, thank you, sir. And Big Bear Mark, great to see you. $10 super chat, all the best to you. He's also a channel member, so thank you. Really appreciate the support tonight, guys. Thank you very much. The channel wouldn't be the channel without you, frankly. So in the original video, we can all remember hearing the gentleman approaching to confirm that he'd already been shooting at the drone, and also confirm that he would be doing the same again if the other gentleman flew the drone over his house again. Now, much of his disquiet really surrounded the fact that the homeowner felt the drone was right over his garden. He stated, "If you do it again, I will fire at it again. I took 3 shots." Now, there was a brief confrontation and a struggle where the drone was actually struck by the barrel of the gun. So it was all very, very dramatic. We all remember seeing this. So it was a shocking and a serious situation where someone is brandishing a weapon and making clear threats. All this time, the drone was operating apparently legally to take pictures on behalf of an estate agent. So this was as I say, it was a really, really interesting story at the time. Now, as you might expect, this case has ended up in the courts with Michael Edwards, the gentleman from the video there, age 72, pleading not guilty to the original charge of possessing an imitation firearm, namely a Huntington Beach G10 repeater air pistol, with intent to cause Dane, who was the drone pilot, to believe that unlawful violence would be used against him, which obviously that sounds like a very serious charge, doesn't it? Once that not guilty plea was in, the charge was actually dropped, and Edwards then pleaded guilty to a less serious charge of having a firearm in a public place without lawful authority or reasonable excuse. Edwards will be sentenced later this month. Thank you, Andy, for gifting a membership there, which has gone to Lambo Drives Ambo. I appreciate it. So here we have a perfectly legal drone flight, and I keep calling it that, and I was calling that in the original video as well, which I only state because there has been no news in terms of any action or warnings provided to the drone pilot, and I assume there would have been some investigation into that, as this obviously became quite a serious investigation overall. But it was, in essence, a legal drone flight, commercial operation, which appeared to be within a congested area, taking estate agency photos of another house, which would require hovering over other properties. Thank you, Legwork, for gifting a membership, which has gone to Droning Western Australia. I really appreciate it. Thank you. The channel members, you guys blow me away with these live streams. So many of you there in green, and everybody's welcome, of course. And thank you for joining us. And also, if you've got anything to say on this story, do pop it in the chat, because I will be coming back and having a look what everybody's got to say on this one, because there is a community side of this. There's a community discussion side of this, which we certainly need to get to. One of the specific issues that we have with this kind of operation, with a drone pilot taking pictures on behalf of an estate agent, is of course, especially in these kind of residential areas, which you can see in the video behind me there, where you're going to have to essentially be flying over somebody else's property, and sometimes of course hovering to get the picture and put the settings correctly and that type of thing. So there's always going to be that element of confrontation with this kind of flight. But of course, even within the open category, there are ways to make this flight happen perfectly legally, depending on what weight of drone it is and that type of thing. But yeah, it is something that the assumption, and the reaction of the homeowner was obviously quite extreme, to assume that the drone pilot or the drone was actually up to no good. It seems to me that people seem to think that if a drone is directly above them or very close to them, it's looking straight down at them, when of course anybody that's doing anything nefarious with a drone is going to be doing it from a ways away with the zoom on, etc., and that type of thing, not giving anybody ideas there, of course. The comments in the original live stream where we showed this video playing originally, which were from non-drone operators, actually focused on the concerns over why the drone was there and whether or not that flight was legal, with many people feeling like the gentleman with the air pistol was even justified in feeling so threatened by a drone flying over his house. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? And just looking in the chat very quickly, Christine Crockford, hi, good to see you. Let me just highlight that very quickly. It comes up, there we go. I live in the countryside. We have 3 cottages in a row, and my friend who was with me took a high-up picture of the cottages and put it on Facebook, and my neighbour has threatened to shoot it down with a shotgun. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of animosity, doesn't there, towards this kind of thing. And I know that John Burns here is saying there's no excuse for any homeowner to threaten a drone operator doing his job with a weapon at all, string him up from the nearest gallows. Which seems reasonable, doesn't it? Why is it that people seem okay with threatening drone operators? It's a very strange thing which has started to happen within our society, and I feel like we need to start addressing this, and we need to have the assistance and the help of the authorities and everybody around us to help us get there. So where has this actually come from? The bad impression of drones and drone operators, the assumptions people jump to. Now, there was, of course, a lot of negative press and a lot of focus, particularly in the UK, around the Gatwick story. Of course, it's an internationally renowned story now, and it's something which a lot of people still talk about, but certainly at the time, it gave a lot of people certainly ill feelings towards drone operators. People are often concerned about privacy and what is a drone doing there? Why is there a drone over my house and that type of thing? And I have to admit that personally, even with all of my experience, with all of my knowledge, if I did see a drone hovering over my back garden, I would actually wonder what it's doing there. I wouldn't react nearly in the way that this gentleman has, etc., but I would be interested to know what it's actually doing. But why would it go from what's that drone doing to having such a strong reaction? I think it's something which is, to me, very, very interesting. So perhaps they've had a bad experience, perhaps they've had a poor experience of drone operator before, although I can't imagine that many people have actually come across that many drones to have that many bad experiences, frankly. The word drone, I think, is still very much associated with military and intelligence use, especially at the moment. There's obviously a lot in the press. There's a lot in the news over in Ukraine and around the world in terms of the word drone being something which is a military thing, which is an intelligence thing, a spying thing. So perhaps the use of that word, obviously the word drone was really picked up once the camera drones, the GPS drones, the DJI drones came into the marketplace. Previously, it was always quadcopters and quads, etc. Now, there is obviously, as I was saying before, there's the bad image created of drones by the mishandled Gatwick story. And also, perhaps people are assuming, they're making assumptions on the intention and have a desire to protect their privacy. So I can understand if it's something that you don't understand and you're upset about something, I can understand why somebody might feel that way. Again, of course, there is absolutely no reason why anybody should act the way that they did in this video, 100% from that point of view. And there's obviously therefore a misunderstanding in terms of the good use of drones. So they just don't see actually where the good use of drones is. Now, although it's a niche, the audit channels I don't necessarily think are helping people, because you see the confrontation. If you're going into those channels, if you're going into those videos and you understand what's going on, then I think you have the context and you're then having a discussion over the freedoms and being able to pursue legal activities without being harassed, etc. But I think, again, those videos are starting to sort of bleed into the mainstream side of things, and I think it might be giving people the wrong impressions of drone use. And of course, there's a general misunderstanding of the concept and ability of drones in terms of actually, can that drone that's hovering across the street from me, can he now zoom in and look in my windows and that type of thing, etc. Exactly what is the capability of that? So I think that's always been an issue there as well. Now, where do I think we need to go? I think we need more positive PR. So we need drone use either from a recreational or commercial side of things, which is perfectly legal and acceptable behavior. And the vast majority of drone pilots are safe and are conscious of their actions. Someone carrying out anything illegal, anything legally, should not be threatened or demonized at all. So we need to start building that kind of thing, really, in terms of being able to actually improve the image there. So really, the easy start to that, the one that we can control, is obviously us, the community. So how we act and fly responsibly will have a very big impact on public opinion. Of course, we all tend to take off from areas and from positions where we're not going to be confronting people. So we're not sort of walking around as sort of mobile PR machines. But it does also, it gives us the opportunity when we do speak to the public, when we do see people, to be able to promote drones for good, but also challenging misconceptions and the wrong use of legislation wherever possible, be that policing or local authorities trying to restrict legal drone use. I think that's a good thing to do to ensure that we are standing up for our rights. When you look around at other industries, I feel like there are trade bodies and representatives, regulators even, and government departments seeking to place a lot of good PR about how that industry or tech sector is helping everybody and is a force for good. We don't, I really don't feel like we have that within the drone world, either recreationally or commercially. And that really had me thinking, who do I think should be or could be doing more to help promote things, basically? I think, firstly, I think at a base level, I think the organisations such as BMFA and RPAS UK, being hobby and trade retrospectively, could be putting out more content aimed directly at the public in terms of building the image. Now, this isn't their job per se, but it would benefit their members to have a better public impression of what their members do with drones. This could even help bring new people into drones as well, of course. Now, it isn't their priority, but I would hold others as examples, such as Simon Dale of FPV UK. The organisation there is very active in challenging the demonisation of drones, with active PR towards the drones for good side of things, with things like AirProx reality check and pushing campaigns such as the consultation into the CAA charges, which was obviously fairly successful. Really, to me, I feel like surely more work like this to support the drone world in general from those organisations and promote drones for good could only be a positive thing for their members long term. And I don't just mean, telling their members to follow the rules and do this correctly and do that correctly, but actually reaching the public to tell them why we're flying our drones. Why is that FPV guy flying his drone in the park? Why is the estate agent hiring a drone pilot to go and take photos, etc., that type of thing? And really just, try to look at it from that point of view. Now, is there anybody else that could be, or perhaps should be, helping us in terms of building the PR around drones? We have some content coming soon, which is going to be looking at the balance of work within the CAA, relating specifically to income and or profit that they make from the different sectors, such as RPAS or drones, the drone world. So we're going to have more on that in due course. But as a highlight for this discussion, it might shock you to learn that the CAA made a profit. So this is not income, but an actual profit from charges in the UK of £1.3 million for 2020-2021 and 576,000 for 2021-2022. Now, this is off the back of a turnover of 2.85 million in 2021-2022. So that's the charges made within the RPAS and DMARAS sector. So that is DMARAS, the Drone and Model Aircraft Registration and Education Scheme, so drone registration, and all of the things like operators paying their operation authorization fees, OSCs, that type of thing, etc. All of those kind of charges came together to bring this amount of money and to be making an actual profit. I would therefore think and wonder that the CAA have the funds and the remit to put out some campaigns telling everyone not only how to fly their drones responsibly, but also campaigns to the public to let them know about legal drone flight and to promote drones for good. I'd then like perhaps to see the work that they do with things like ATOL sort of spread in a different way. The ATOL program, which the CAA support actively on their social media, obviously helps holidaymakers understand their rights and how the ATOL system protects them. The CAA ATOL program is pretty successful with regular posts, as I say, across their social media. So they do know how to reach the public with this type of messaging. So why wouldn't they do this for the drone world as well? Perhaps they need some direction from government to allow them to be able to do that or not. I'm not entirely sure, but to me it makes sense. You have a sizable profit being made off the back of the operators of drones within the UK, and therefore you do have funds there to be able to fund PR campaigns, which will hopefully make drone use more popular and more acceptable, and therefore expand that industry even more. Now, I know they're a regulator; they're not there as a PR machine as such, but actually informing the public of the wider drone regulations and actually what is legal and what is not, and what is not, and the fact that if you see a sub 250-gram drone, there's every likelihood it's probably flying legally, pretty much almost whatever it's doing these days, really, frankly. But it's something I feel like is within their power and is similar to the sort of ATOL programs that they already run. Now, we also, therefore, as I was saying, that may need to be actually come from a direction from government. So we'll have to see in time how that pans out. And that leads us on to government itself. There are some government attempts to discuss drones and give PR to the niche in general, but many of these campaigns feel more like box ticking exercises, which have very little penetration into the general public, even really to the niche, the people looking out for these kinds of stories. But general public wise, very little penetration. It would be good to see the DFT either grasp this and see the need for better public information about drones themselves and not just the bad stories, or instruct the CAA to use some of that profit made from drone charges to promote the industry and hobby as a safe and legal practice. Perhaps this might also help bring the regulator, the government, and the drone user closer together, because we'll all feel like actually we're pulling in the same direction a little bit as well. Just my personal opinion on that one. So drone pilots, to me, are not the only audience the messages need to reach. Until we get more positive PR put out consistently and instead see stories like the Hurricane versus Mini 3 story feature so prominently, we possibly should not be surprised that the public have a dim view of us. We need to focus on stories like the Hurricane story. It's focused twice on this channel, but our last live stream was actually discussing and showing the photos of the Hurricane story. But it's important to show new users and existing users that the level of safety is required. So I understand why we need that, and also that there are consequences for illegal activity. One of those news stories with a high level prosecution such as that, and a pretty hefty sentence, obviously puts off a lot of people from flying their drones illegally. But what about some messaging to support the estate agent out there taking pictures, or the hobbyist enjoying their passion? I think that's really what we need to start seeing, frankly. So that's my two bits, as it were, on this particular part of things. And I just want to hop across to the chat and see what you guys are saying about this. Johnny Mac, thank you very much, member for 24 months of the Drone Club. I really appreciate it, and I hope you're extremely well, sir. And hello again to all of our channel members and all of our wonderful viewers as well. So looking up here at some of the messages, let's have a look and go up and make sure I get to where we were before. There we go. Yeah, Tazzy says, brandishing a handgun of any sort in public, automatic prison sentence required. I wonder, and I would assume that has a lot to do with the fact that this charge was obviously brought down, and you can hear even just the connotation when you actually read out the difference in the I bring this up to where I was before, and the difference just between the actual sentence, the actual charges, is fairly stark, frankly. where you have possessing an imitation firearm with intent to cause Dane Gooden, the pilot, to believe that unlawful violence would be used against him. Pretty serious charge, that one, isn't it? I mean, it's interesting that was dropped after after the not guilty plea. Obviously, there's been some discussion there in the court and some negotiation, I assume, and then pleaded guilty to the less serious of having a firearm in public place without lawful authority or reasonable excuse, which is still very serious, but obviously steps it down a little bit, basically. But yeah, I completely and utterly agree with you there in terms of that it really should be seen as something very, very serious. A Steel City drone pilot, who is one of our professional pilots in the chat this evening. I won't take any threats to me when I'm doing something legal. Yeah, same here. It is something. It's one of those situations that I think is very, very difficult, because you almost immediately have that misunderstanding, the misconception hitting the sort of and I don't mean self-entitlement necessarily in a negative way, but we do feel that way in terms of, hang on a minute, we know the rules, because we have to know the rules extremely well. I am allowed to be flying here. This is a perfectly legal flight, and in fact, like yourself, Paul, and others, earning money to put dinner on the table, as it were. I'm entitled to be here. When those two worlds meet, as it were, then and clash, then I think it really could be a recipe for disaster sometimes, which is obviously what has happened sometimes. And Lauren, thanks for joining us. Until the authorities start prosecuting individuals for discharging a weapon at an aircraft, nothing will happen. And it's an interesting one, that, because we often hear over in the States as well, in terms of people shooting at a drone is seen as shooting at an aircraft. It is designated an aircraft, and therefore something very, very serious under federal regulations, the law in the United States. But often we don't see any follow-up in terms of, we'll see the news story of a drone with bits hanging off of it, and it's clearly been shot. And I know there was the one case recently where actually the police dropped the situation once the pilot was happy that the person shooting the drone would pay for a new drone, basically would pay to recover the damage. And I agree that as much as we need to see authorities appropriately prosecuting the bad use of drones, such as we saw with the hurricane situation, arguably, I think we need to see it from the other side as well. We need that to be a fair, two-sided thing, frankly. Debbie Heaney, hi Debbie, thank you for joining us. I think in part that some of the negativity around drones comes from the media and how it reports military drone actions. Completely agree with you there. I think the word drone was the worst possible word that could have been associated with our little consumer drones and even our larger professional drones, from the point of view that it does bring up those connotations, doesn't it, Debbie? That it's one of those things which is it really is, especially at the moment in the last year with everything that's happening in Ukraine, and the way drones are being used there, and they are our consumer drones. It really does start to mix it up in terms of consumer drones and the whole sort of militarization of drones as well. So no, I agree with you there completely. James G3112, thanks for joining us. Great to see so many new names in the chat this evening. If you are new here, do hit subscribe. Geeksvana is here for anything drone related, essentially. We do tend to focus more on the journalistic side of things, so bring you the background of stories that are happening throughout the hobby and the commercial side. But if you're new, hit the subscribe button. Quite, I went off on a little tangent there, didn't I? So yeah, James G312, people don't even realize you can take photos in public with a camera, let alone someone lawfully operating a drone. I have several friends and also colleagues, people who work for me on the video production side of Geeksvana, who will often tell me stories of how they approach different shoots. And if they're going into a park, if they're going into somewhere where they know there's going to be a decent amount of people, they will often downscale their professional rig and tripod to something as small as possible and as inconspicuous as possible, because they themselves, just in terms of the mirrorless or SLR cameras, etc., even cine cameras, they get those kind of approaches in public as well, when they turn up with the tripod and the telephoto lens and microphones hanging off the top of it and everything else like that. So yes, I know a few professionals who actually take steps to essentially not cover up what they're doing, but to try and minimise the amount of people that are going to come over and potentially have an issue with it. Hi up, Graham, one of our editors on the channel. Hi, Graham, hope you're well. It would be lovely to see if the regulator didn't use misleading images or make statements with a negative bias towards drone use. Yeah, it doesn't help, does it, Graham? It doesn't help when we have things like the CAP document, which had the drone flying outside the jet airplane window, which has now been changed, but it doesn't help in terms of feeling like the CAA, the regulator, are on our side as well. Obviously, they're on the side of everybody, all stakeholders in the airspace, of course, but we are one of those stakeholders, and we're a pretty damn safe stakeholder as well. And it would be nice to feel like they're more on our side, and perhaps positive PR campaigns about drone use would actually be something which would bring that back, which would actually bring us more back towards them, frankly. Yeah, absolutely, Debbie. Completely agree with you there on that point. John Cooper, who let you in? I think local police departments could help a lot by educating the public using their Facebook. A lot of PDs have Facebook now to post updates and information. And John is one of our US viewers. He's also our FPV editor at Geeksvana.news. He's got his first articles about to be published. They're in the draft section at the moment. I promise not to publish them until you finish them, John. But yes, so thank you for that view from across the pond. And over here we do have a few police drone units who are actually fairly active on social media. People like West Midlands Police, Kevin up at Lincolnshire, and a few others who are very proactive at trying to put out the positive use cases that they have in terms of drones. And I think that does help things. Obviously, there's a bit of a separation from the point of view that that's the police using drones as to us, and I'd really like to see that. But I agree as well that there needs to be an education system. Although I think we already give police departments stateside and in the UK an awful lot to do already, frankly. So yeah, it'd be an interesting one. I'm not sure how to actually pronounce Retbit. Sorry if I've mispronounced that. Hi, I haven't seen your name before. Thank you for joining us. It's a new concept that people are not generally exposed to. Perhaps we need to make others aware whilst flying in legitimate circumstances like surveying properties. Yeah, and I think there will be a certain amount of this will be taken care of by time. And in terms of people being exposed to drones and seeing the activities on the good use cases, what I don't want to see, of course, is a situation where we end up with this negative feeling growing and growing. And I know how social media can work, and I know how feelings towards certain things can really become ingrained, and I don't want that to keep repeating. But yes, I agree that is there. John Burns, I think that a lot of animosity to these so-called auditors, many of whom seem to use rather aggressive tactics language. They come across a bit arrogant at times. Yeah, and I think this is this is an interesting topic all of itself. Obviously, I've published a few videos in terms of the auditor side of things. I don't have too much more necessarily to say in a wider context, but I think that there's also the different levels, isn't there, in terms of there are auditor channels and there are auditor channels, if you know what I mean. And anybody just sticking the word audit in a channel description, in a channel name title, doesn't mean that they're doing anything even remotely approaching auditing, such as the guy who flew over Jeremy Clarkson's farm, where again that's a lot of people reading his column, that's a lot of people hearing, and he was very derogatory towards all drone pilots, basically calling us all perverts essentially. And that isn't good for a very, very popular person in however you feel about him. And I think that kind of thing is concerning. And I'm not saying there should be a benchmark for who can call themselves auditors, but I think we need to look past that tag sometimes and see what they're actually doing, frankly, on some of them, some cases. Excuse me. Clear my throat there. It's been a lot of talking this evening. I haven't been live streaming too much recently, although that is now set to increase. And yes, the throat is rather dry after talking for that long. There we go. Perfect. So Hot Rod in Daytona, great to see you. Hope you're well. In this day and age, the second you're outside your house, you can be photographed with cell phones everywhere. Should worry more about a spy cam in your Airbnb versus a drone. Absolutely, I agree with that. I think there is a unique perspective quite literally that a drone will give you, that I think that does start to prick the ears of the general public and people who are concerned about privacy and that type of thing. And there are people who do use drones nefariously. It's not as obviously as commonplace as us responsible users, but they are out there. And I think that because drones are obviously something which is flying in the sky, so it's therefore going to get a unique perspective, I think that does add to it. But I completely agree with you there, Hot Rod. I hope you're well, sir. Um, and Christine just saying, sorry, I suffer lazy finger typo syndrome. Yeah, I have the same thing. I actually kind of have a rule myself that any typos or spelling errors in YouTube live chats are completely allowed, frankly. There should be no spell checking and no no grammar, as I'm clearly not having myself today. Malcolm, hi, good to see you. Hope you're well. AAM Drone Assist was developed to give drone flyers info on where to fly safe and give the public access to why a drone is flying as they need to know why. Yeah, and Drone Assist is a fantastic product. It's obviously still fairly niche. I do actually have a video coming out next week pointing out a couple of problems that can bring, because it can still be a bit wishy-washy. And in actual fact, I'll give you an example of the FRZ that's shown around Manchester prison, or Strangeways it used to be called. There's a nice big red circle around that, so that particular area. And if you click on that in Drone Assist, it tells you that it may be prohibited or unadvised to fly your drone there. It doesn't give you any details of what the actual FRZ is. My issue with that is that that's actually only for helicopters alone. It's not actually for drones. The problem is that a member of the public looking at that app will actually click on that and see it's an FRZ, or perhaps an officer that doesn't have much experience in drones will click on the app and will see that FRZ and will think you're flying illegally. So I think that yes, Drone Assist is fantastic. The new version of Drone Assist, which is coming, which we have an unboxing video which we're recording at the moment, is even better. But we're hoping to improve some of the language that's used on that app. To help things be a little bit more clear, and only to include the FRZs which are actually going to be impacting drone flyers, frankly, because that's one that is a bit of an awkward one. There is a way around that. There's a very simple way around it. There's also a simple way around that you can prove to the person, which is in that video which will be coming out next week. It's currently with our editor, so keep an eye out for that one. But yes, in principle, I agree with you. Malk B, most people still think they have to give their permission for you to take their photo or video. Of course, for an individual, this is not correct, even if you put the video, photo online, etc. Yeah, the perception of what you can and can't do with a camera, full stop, is a difficult one. When you then add something in there like that camera is a flying camera, a drone, it becomes a lot more difficult. Andy Cortez, our senior moderator. Hi Andy, hope you're well, hope you enjoyed the pub this evening. I've always had good responses from the public. I wear a drone SAR for lost dogs high vis when flying, which helps calm Karens as they approach. Excellent work, Andy. John Coopy, the sad thing is that negative, fearful news sells more than good news in general. It does, but I agree and disagree with that from the point of view that I think there are a lot of good use cases out there that do go viral. The FPV fly-throughs and that type of thing, and and those kind of things do get a lot of exposure to the wider public who go, wow, that's cool, wow, that was a drone, that's amazing. The recent movie Ambulance, which had a lot of publicity around the drone use surrounding it when that movie first came out. That's all fantastic, and it's actually getting across to the public, and to public that haven't had interactions with drones as well, which I think is a really good thing. And I would just like to see that as an organized campaign from something where the word trust, government, and regulator, those three words are often difficult to put in a sentence, but certainly in the same way that the public trust a CAA tweet regarding the Atoll program, they would perhaps trust it if they said, hey, these are the drone rules, and actually that drone flying over your house or flying over here or there is every likelihood it's legal. I know they can't, give carte blanche and give a blanket, hey, that and get into those hot waters. But there is language, there is a campaign there which could give a lot more positive feedback, frankly, in my opinion. And Graham saying, I'm afraid some flyers are as entitled as some owners. They don't give up. They don't own the airspace. Brigade really don't help. Yeah, and I think we all have to take responsibility, don't we, and ensure that we realise that the airspace is, you know, open and free to everybody, frankly. And Tazzy saying the gun owner deserves a sentence, and then perhaps people will think twice about being aggressive. Yeah, and that's really, I mean, to me, you know, what other reasons, what other issues would there have been for this gentleman to have pulled out his air pistol and chased after someone down the street? It just seems absolutely crazy. And indeed, you know, in this instance, the system works. He is being prosecuted for it, but it just feels absolutely crazy, frankly. And Johnny DRC saying the FAA and CAA still have no clue what we fly. They think we are reckless. That's the impression we're left with, isn't it? That's the impression a lot of people are left with. I don't think that's necessarily on the whole, but I agree with you that they don't actually have much clue of what many people fly. Certainly people like yourself, Johnny, on the FPV side of things, the self-build side of things, I don't think there's any real understanding of that at all. And John Cooper saying, yep, and the mainstream news media needs to spread the word about it, or else people will remain uneducated. Answering Tazzy there in terms of there being a decent sentence passed down in this instance. And Tazzy and Lambo and Andy are having a chat about Pringles, which is always good fun. And that goth guy, hi, good to see you. Hope you're well. Saying that the Firearms Act 1968 makes it an offence to transfer a firearm or ammunition to anyone believed to be drunk. Just coming back to, he's obviously commenting on her experience, on Christine's experience there with her neighbour threatening to shoot her drone down. And John Burns saying, I can just imagine the CAA doing an advert promoting drones. See a drone flying over your house? Shoot it down. Yes, perhaps not the PR we were looking for. Yeah, I mean, perhaps high-vis vests required to inform and alert the public that you're a professional drone pilot and they should not be disturbed while flying. Creative vision. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, you know, I don't necessarily wear anything high-vis and that type of thing when I'm out flying my drone. I think it's that's down to the sort of, you know, the personal choice. I do think that it's one of those things where actually it's with, if that activity is legal, then you should be able to just crack on and do that, basically. And D&D Aerials, hi, good to see you. Hope you're well. I don't know, guys. Drones are scary. Look at them blowing stuff up, and that's scary. Yes, indeed. Well, and that again is a lot of the perception that actually that happens. And Andy Cortez saying, there are new Geeksvana handouts to come for all UK pilots. Yes, that's coming. And Bruce XJet, hi Bruce, good to see you. Hope you're well, sir. And hope Mrs. XJet is doing well as well. Please let us know in the chat. My high vis says I'm the anti-Karen. Yes, I can only imagine if we put Bruce in charge of producing us all high vis jackets to wear, I can only imagine the messages that will actually end up on there. And Itchy Sack, Sam, hi. I hope Rose as well. I have a laminated card that explains my FPV quad has no photo capabilities, QR codes to local drone laws, my FAT registration and my LANT fast registration, I think you mean there, and LANT approval to fly in the area. Yeah, excellent idea. We do actually have a series of leaflets here in the UK at Geeksvana, one of our videos. We have a new range just about to come out, including a couple which I'm very excited about, which are to hand out to the public, which show them that that you believe what you are doing is legal, and it gives them QR codes on the bottom of that to be able to scan. There's actually one police force that actually hands those QR codes out to people as well. One drone unit, which is useful. Angus Cooper, hi Angus, good to see you. One thing I found irritating is when uninvolved people approach you when flying. It's very distracting, even if they're being nice. That's actually one of the reasons why we made this leaflet in particular, actually. So you're able to hand it to them and it says, I'm not going to be able to speak with you because I need to concentrate on flying a drone. Because of course, sometimes, especially, you know, whether it's for recreational or for commercial, you may only have that opportunity to, as Eminem would say, you only have one opportunity to capture that sunset or sunrise in that particular mist and everything else like that. So yes, it can be very frustrating when that happens. And Tassie says, every so often I will go on a local social media page for an area and invite people along to ask questions. I do caveat it's with the expectation of no whinging. It can help with poor perceptions. Yeah, nice. And if you're able to do proactive things like that, I think it's great. And as I say, I think as a community, we need to do as much as we possibly can. But I feel like we need some help here. I feel like we need some help to get out in front of that bus and be able to have a much wider campaign. I don't think it would take much. In my opinion, there is profit there from the RPAS community going through the regulator. Perhaps we should, potentially look at that. And Cool Cat, hi Cool Cat, hope you're well, sir. Gary reminded me that the BMFA is older than other forms of aviation, and we FPV pilots, RC hobbyists, shouldn't forget it. The regulators should be approaching us begging for airspace. Yeah, that really isn't how airspace works, is it? So, airspace should be and is open to all. And I think we need to remember that as well. And no matter how long a certain stakeholder has been or hasn't been using the airspace, I think we all need to be open to it, because there's a lot coming as well. There's a lot coming, frankly. Okay. Yeah. Didn't you say you only get one shot? Sorry to be pedantic. Yes, I did. Thank you. I tried to hide it with an M&M joke, but there we go. Bruce XJ, I'm heading out this weekend to take as many people as I can for passenger rides on my FPV drone in the park. I'll post a video with the results. Excellent. I look forward to that. I think it's a fantastic idea, sir. There we are. And Mike Drennan, thank you very much for your 34 months of membership. I really appreciate it. Speaking of mainstream drones, IGAO, let me highlight this actually. IGAO for registration opens tomorrow. Sorry for the shameless plug. Mike, could you put a link in the chat to that, please? You're a moderator and someone I've known for a long time. We came this close to meeting when he was in London. But we will meet next time you're over. But yes, can you put a link to that? IGAO 4, that is the International Game of Whoop, which is the tiny Whoop drones, the little ducted FPV drones with the goggles, and it's essentially a game of horse for your tiny Whoop. Each week, the Dan and Ashley and Mike, the organisers of the event, actually put on a course which you copy at home, or a particular trick or a particular stunt, and you try to mimic it and you send your video in, and you get to basically take out the IGAO in a similar way to the game of horse, the letters out for each one that you either can't do or each week that you need to miss. There are some great prizes for it as well, and it's a really fantastic one. And in fact, Mike has now put the link in the chat, so I do recommend anyone that's interested, anyone that's thinking even of getting into the Whoop side of things, go and have a look at it. It's a really great competition, and spreading the good use of drones in the hobby side of things, certainly. Okay, PD Tech, thank you, sir. I can always count on you for some fun comments and challenging comments sometimes. I find wearing a high vis with "I've got COVID, get back" seems to work well at keeping the Karens at bay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for bringing up two possibly confrontational situations there. So I really appreciate it. That golf guy, I avoid confrontation by avoiding people. I agree. If I want to take a video of an old building, I'll find a nearby field with a clear line of sight and tuck myself under a tree, so to look like I'm picnicking. What if I want to come and join you with your picnic? But no, I understand what you're saying, goth guy. Is it bad? Is it that time of the evening that I'm thinking about picnics already? But I'm thinking about food. But there we go. So there we go. So that is the story. I feel like we are in a situation where good things are happening in terms of I'm not ashamed or afraid to say that I think it's good that people are being prosecuted for flying their drones blatantly illegally. I think it's good that people shooting at drones are being prosecuted correctly. I think all of this is fantastic, but I feel like even despite those stories having some good in them in terms of, hey, look, the rules do work, the regulations work, in terms of the fact that we're then able to prosecute people, I feel like we need a little bit of help here in the drone world, full stop, internationally, but particularly here in the UK, in terms of bringing drones back around as a force for good and publicising that as much as possible. And I look to the organisations, I look to the regulator, I look to the government to hopefully bring that on and to help us with it, basically. So that's it this evening. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll be back very, very soon with a national trust related story, which will probably be a live stream. I haven't decided yet, but we're going to look at that and have a chat about some of the things which are changing over there in terms of policy. And as I say, we've got a few videos in the edit, which actually I wanted to put out this week, but they just weren't quite ready. But we are getting back to full production here on the channel. So I will see you all again very, very soon. Thanks, everyone. See you next time. Sean out.